Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. So much controversy and a lot of deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Let's break it down with the proper perspective.
Mic check. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? What's going on? It's your boy, it's your brother, it's your homie, might be even your uncle. It's Shabazz. How y'all doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. We getting it started tonight. Coming to you live tonight. We're talking about Virginia politics. This may be the start of an ongoing series that I do. So, we're going to try to keep it light a little bit, but not too light. So we're talking about Virginia politics. The monumental, the never have happened before, the history-making gubernatorial race. Virginia politics, ladies and gentlemen. So we got black candidate Winsome Sears versus white candidate Abigail Spanberger. We got Black MAGA versus, I don't know what, a centrist Democrat. I don't think she's a progressive. She might be considered progressive in some circles, so I'm not. Don't hold me to that. But when it comes to this whole Virginia politics thing, have y'all seen as many commercials as I have seen? I'm seeing both candidates' commercials, to be honest with you, but I'm seeing so many more, I think. Now, I can't quantify this, so let me be careful with my words. I feel like I'm seeing more commercials from Winsome Sears. I ain't 100% sure of that, but it certainly feels that way. Now, what's going on? Excuse me while I take a break. This is Shabazz with the proper perspective. I am coming to you live on YouTube, but I'm also coming to you live on Instagram. So you may see my head, switching from one camera to the next or whatever. But again, we're talking about Virginia politics tonight. We're talking about Winsome Sears and Abigail Spanberger. Now, I hope y'all ready to hear this, because I'm known to have some pretty interesting views, at least at times. But these are what I want to talk about. Like I said, this may be the beginning of a thing that I do as far as this Virginia political thing is concerned. But here's my main issue right now, just for the moment. Especially in response to all these commercials I keep seeing. Now, see, because for me, this is what I notice. The Republicans seem to be hoping for, and this ain't new, they're always hoping for this. Now, they made some ground. They moved the needle a little bit in this last presidential election, and that's a very unfortunate thing, but hey, it is what it is. But they are once again hoping that this will be another one of those few instances of theirs where they choose a black candidate for a particular race. They hope that black people will vote for that black candidate because that candidate is black. Now, I find that very interesting because I see a type of hypocrisy in it. Because at the same time, when there is a black person running for a position on the Democratic side of things, And yeah, for the most part, Democrats do this on a much bigger scale. That may be why we feel like we get better representation over there. But when the Democrats do run black candidates, the Republicans jump up and down. Don't vote for the candidate just because he's black. You shouldn't vote for the person based on their race. When they do it all the time anyhow. So on that level alone, I'm sensing this sense of this style of hypocrisy. They only point out, let's not play the race card, if they think it's gonna hurt the opponent. The second they think it might help them, they play the race card. Vote for a black woman. I'm just saying, no, I'm not with that. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a deeper problem going on. As superficial as that thinking is on the surface, there's at least one more layer to it. Because what does it say about you? Now, which you am I talking about? What does it say about you, the Republican, who thinks black people are so simple-minded, that all they have to do is parade a black person in front of them and we'll go voting? They don't think too highly of you if this is since that's how they look at you. There's not a whole lot of respectability in that position. And this is underscored. It's a double down when you see them playing both sides. They think that you are so superficial. They think that you are not a critical thinker. And that's why they try to get away with denigrating and castigating and downplaying a black candidate when that person is running for office on the Democratic side. But then they got all types of praises for a black person that runs on their side. They want to hold that person up as a model Negro. We should have more people like Clarence Thomas. That's the kind of black I like. Now, yeah, you could chalk it off. You could chalk some of this off as just plain old politics, as just plain old competition. One side versus the other. Okay, I got you. But it's deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. And that's what I'm trying to point out here. So that's what I want you to think about. Now, if you agree with me, you disagree with me, you think I got it right, you think I got it wrong, what have you? Let's duke it out in the comments. Let's duke it out on the battlefield. My comment section below. And if you're not sure, this is Shabazz. Welcome to the Proper Perspective. Like, share, and subscribe is the name of the game, so please hit all the buttons. It don't cost you nothing, but it certainly helps me. So we're talking about Virginia politics. Winsome Sears versus Abigail Spanberger. And yeah, it's historic in Virginia to have the opportunity to vote for the first woman who will be heading up the government in Virginia. That's monumental. I'm not disagreeing with that. I salute that. And that's very much worth a conversation. It's very much worth talking about. It's historic that you have this opportunity to vote for a black woman, although we're not supposed to be voting just based on race. It's just as groundbreaking, however, as when Doug Wilder assumed the throne as the first black governor. Now, I know there's a difference. There's a difference in gender. But let's not get it twisted. It is historic to think maybe a black woman could be running Virginia. But is this the kind of black person? Is this the kind of black woman we want running Virginia? That's the question. What I am here to say is we should not ever be the type of people, of voting public, of voting bloc that only looks at the racial configuration of the candidate. And I say that because I feel it's very necessary to say this. Because what Republicans, right wingers, white nationals, Christian nationals, alt-right, alt-right, what all these folks are doing, hoping for, strategizing, plan, plot, strategize, like Tupac said, is that we will default to this tribalism, which truly is an inferior mode of thinking. The idea that we would forget about the tax cuts that make it harder for us and vote for her because she's black. The idea that we would forget about the police brutality that she's in favor of, that she supports, and vote for her because she's black. They want us to forget about this black woman who's in favor of cutting the taxes in such a way as to harm the black community and vote for her because she's black. This candidate, Winsome Sears, Winsome Earle Sears, let me strive to get the name right. She's in favor of protecting crooked killer cops simply because they wear the badge. But we should vote for her just because she's black. She's a staunch supporter of the current administration, who have been violating laws, violating standards, violating ethics of conduct, sending troops into black cities. And she thinks this is all good, and we're supposed to vote for her just because she's black. No, she is the poster child for all skin folk ain't. No, all kinfolk ain't skin folk. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Yeah, I got it mixed up a little bit there, but I got it out. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We're supposed to forget the things that impact our everyday lives just because the woman is black? Oh, no. That makes absolutely no sense. Now, if you're not a critical thinker, you may fall for that. But we have a history of being critical thinkers, although a lot of them don't think we do. Now, I spoke on this a little bit earlier. It's rather funny. It's rather hilarious that this black woman started up. Did y'all know? Did you hear? Did y'all see? She started up this bus tour campaign. And she was, well, let me give a shout out. Shout out to Tansy Buzzy B. I don't know if this thing is even looking right, working right, but shout out to Tansy Busby for joining over on Instagram. Appreciate you being here. But did y'all know that she started up this bus tour campaign where she's going to, travel the state, get the word out, meet the people. She gets to the first stop and ain't nobody there. No one. See, there's a reason for that. Because most of us ain't going to fall for the okie doke. We not stupid. We not fools. The Republican Party thinks we are. We ain't coming out for that BS. Now, I also think it's interesting that she couldn't even garner enough MAGA folk. That's a thing. So let's look at that. Let's think about that. Because there's this question that a lot of, either a lot of black Democrats, a lot of black liberals, a lot of black radicals, we've been posing this question to black MAGA. So Winsome Sears, at this point, if you're a Republican, you're a MAGA. They're lock, stock, and barrel. I don't care if they're going to have their little infights, but they're going to all stand and deliver on the Project 2025 MAGA agenda. So she's doing this campaign around the whole state. And even MAGA don't come out. White MAGA, black MAGA, even they don't come out. Now, if that ain't embarrassing, I don't know what is. I mean, clearly, clearly, black Democrats wouldn't be there. But Black MAGA didn't show up. White MAGA didn't show up because white MAGA don't support Black MAGA. Now, white MAGA might use Black MAGA as a tool towards an agenda, but they don't support them. I think that's something very interesting to consider, to review, to discuss. Even the staunchly hateful side of that political right wing won't come out to support her publicly. Now, they may go in the booth and vote because they know they need numbers just to keep that Republican machine rolling and running. But they ain't even gonna waste their time to come out there and listen to what that woman has to say. Shout out to Michael Pan for joining the chat on YouTube. And Michael Pan says, I don't know that I can get this on the screen, but Michael Pan says Philip Scott definitely voted for Donald Trump in 2024. So shout out to you. Appreciate your presence. Keep it rolling. If anybody want to challenge, discuss, duke it out on the battlefield. That's what I always say. That's the chat section. So like I said, so let me get back to this thing now. So we're talking about, since we're talking about Winsome Sears and we're talking about Abigail Spanberger, and I'm talking about those ads. I have seen these ads all day, I would say all night, but I mean, okay, I'm sleep a little bit at night. But day after day after day, I'm seeing these ads. I'm going to try to show you one in the interest of, y'all know all those little disclaimers that you got to give. But this is a political conversation. So let me see if I can get this going. Y'all can see it. Now, if you are watching on Instagram, it behooves you to come on over to youtube.com/@, and that's the @ sign, not the letters, @The Proper Perspective, if you want to catch the whole thing.
Virginia Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle Sears says Virginia school districts should end their current transgender and non-binary bathroom and locker room policies. If they don't, and she gets elected, Earle Sears says she'll sign legislation requiring public schools to have girls-only and boys-only private spaces.
Now, so y'all hear, these are the commercials that are coming on all the time. These are the commercials that are being shown. And so again, I'm trying to draw down on this idea. What is it that they're really campaigning on? Like, we're living in a time where, I'll probably repeat this a couple of times, we're living in an era where really money is the root of all struggles. I'm not going to say evil. I never liked that phrase, money is the root of all evil. It's not. Human greed might be the root of all evil. Money is a means to an end. We're now living in a time where, like, the younger generation, the people, they're well within the gainfully employed group of humans in this country. Whether they went to college and got a degree in a thing, or they went to a trade school and got their expertise in a thing, everybody is coming to the workforce like the math ain't mathing. And Winsome Earle Sears is running on who's in the bathroom. Like, when they said, it was a long time ago, and like somebody almost got ran out of their election campaign cycle because they were met with a challenger, and the challenger was like, it's the economy, stupid. Like, if it, as real as it was back then, it's more real today. The economy is in the tank. People need jobs, and they need good jobs. People need ways where they don't just, I'm not talking the gig economy. You got some people who can't even sign up for the gig economy. I saw this piece, and people were like, struck because they're struggling under this administration and under this economy. They were like, well, I'm going to have to go ahead and get me one of those gig jobs. So I signed up for, or I tried to sign up for Uber, and it says there are no available slots because there's too many people working for Uber. There's too many people working for Lyft. There's too many people working for DoorDash. So if you're Johnny come lately to the gig economy, you still blocked out. But the Republican Winsome Earle Sears is running on bathroom facilities. See, they're using these transgender and gender non-conforming talking points. They're creating a boogeyman so that they can motivate the fear. It's fear mongering. Let me make sure I come back to the big screen. It's all fear mongering. Plain and simple. They're saying Spanberger supports men in girls' locker rooms. Now, let's just pause this for a second. They're saying this is all deliberate. This is brainwash. They're saying Spanberger supports men in girls' locker rooms. And I'm just like, wait a minute, hold on. Whether you agree with or disagree with the members of that community, and I'm not talking smack about nobody. Whether you agree with that community or disagree, whether you understand that community or not, that's none of my business. But when you say something is outrageously incorrect, as a candidate is trying to put men in girls' locker rooms, and you're talking about schools, come on now. That's just ridiculous. Now, don't take my word for it. I'll play the rest of the ad.
And ban biological males from competing in girls' sports. Ban biologicals to have girls-only and boys-only private spaces. And ban biological males from competing in girls' sports.
It's common
Legislation requiring if they don't, and she gets elected, Earle Sears says she'll sign legislation requiring public schools to have girls-only and boys-only private spaces and ban biological males from competing in girls' sports.
So you hear that. The legislation, the money she is spending. So you hear that. The money she is spending to run this campaign, she's blowing money fast, like Rick Ross. Talking about we gonna put our time, effort, energy, and money into making sure no boy can go into the girls' bathroom. What about putting time, effort, and energy into making sure the school stays open? How about that? What about putting time, energy, and money into making sure the schools are safe? Putting time, energy, and money into making sure nobody steps up to the school with an assault rifle and do the thing that we've seen so many times get done. No, we want to make sure that the bathrooms are gender divided. They're creating a boogeyman. There aren't any, like the only predators, the students the children who are using the children's bathrooms are not predators. This is supposed to be about children going to school safely, where the safety starts way before you get to the bathroom. And they're twisting it into something else, something sinister, something nefarious to try and scare parents. Why? Because the Republicans know fear. Outside of racism, fear is your number one ticket. Now, number two, so that's my number one debunk. Number two, because the claim about children getting, there's another claim, not this video. There's another claim. If I can find that video, I'll play that one too. But there's another claim about children getting gender affirming care without parental consent. At best, it's misleading. At worst, it's flat out false. Gender affirming care for minors involves parents. It involves professionals, medical professionals. It involves extensive counseling. Ain't nobody letting kids make these decisions alone. But Earle Sears wants you to think there's some secret agenda to cut the parents out, when there really when there isn't. So notice what they're doing. They're focusing on transgender policies in schools. And why are they doing it? And especially in Virginia. Because Glenn Youngkin did it. Glenn Youngkin's whole playbook, parents' rights. And he used that to ride on into the office in 2021. Funny thing is, that whole parents' rights playbook, ain't nothing in that playbook about black parents being allowed to demand and defend a real effective curriculum in the schools where black students attend. But they want to again get you riled up over a bathroom issue while the curriculum is doing you a disservice. And I mean content of the curriculum. And I don't just mean whether or not there's information in the curriculum about the truth of American history, all that CRT stuff that they rage against. But I mean, we're living in a time more now than ever. I think it should have always been there, but more now than ever. The curriculum should be addressing financial literacy. No, we want to talk about that bathroom problem. But financial literacy is not in the Glenn Youngkin parents' rights playbook. You have a right to scream bloody murder about teaching the truth that Christopher Columbus didn't discover anything. Oh no, you have a right to challenge that. You don't have a right to demand financial literacy in the classroom. You have a right to challenge whether or not a child can go to a particular bathroom, but you don't have a right to demand financial literacy on any level. Now, yeah, it worked for Glenn Youngkin. And they're hoping that it's going to run again. Bathroom access, school sports. Now, let me say, school sports, I'm not going to say it. I'll save that for another conversation. But they're making this nonsense. They're making this non-issue. They're making these trifles the centerpiece of the campaign because they know it gets people emotional. It gets the people going. right into the divide and conquer. That's where it gets them going, right into the divide and conquer land. All the while, here's what they're not talking about. They're not talking about the economy. It's in the tank. They're not talking about health care. It's about to implode. They're not talking about education funding. Why? Because they're trying to eliminate it. And they're hoping that if you are so focused on who goes into the bathroom, you won't notice the school's about to close. The lights are off. They're not talking about police accountability. They're not talking about affordable housing. I haven't seen that in a Winsome Earle commercial. These are the things that actually affect our everyday lives. But that's not on the campaign trail. Why is that? Why are the Republicans putting up a candidate who's not talking about anything that affects the people? Because they're playing the race card. Furthermore, they want you angry. They want you scared about boogeymen. In one campaign, it's the black guy. Now it's the transgender person. Because if you're focused on that, you won't notice that their tax cuts benefit the wealthy while working families continue to struggle. Gassing you and gaslighting you because they don't want you asking questions about why they're protecting the bad cops. I call them the crooked killer cops. But why are they protecting the bad cops instead of holding them accountable? They don't want to talk about that. They want you to talk about who's going into the bathroom. Because if you're talking about that, then you're not demanding better schools, better pay for teachers, better pay for yourselves. You know, I think it was France, one country just declared we ain't even going to do 5-day work week no more. We going to give the whole country, no matter what job you got, you now only have to show up for 4 days. And they're not changing your pay. They ain't talking about that. Now, yeah, true. Nobody's talking about that. Both parties should be talking about that. But even if they were talking about it, now y'all know how it would play out. The Republicans would say, no, we ain't doing that. And the Democrats would be like, well, we're not too sure if we should. Maybe we could. But this is the distraction. The bathroom is the smokescreen. And it's especially cynical when it's coming from kinfolk, a black woman candidate. Because they're banking on the fact that some of us might have conservative views on LGBTQs. They're hoping that that will be enough to make us forget everything else. That will allow us, make us, trick us into forgetting that, these same people have been on the wrong side of civil rights, human rights, all throughout history. They want us to forget that their policies hurt our communities economically. They want us to forget that we keep getting played. Shout out to Michael Pan. He said it was Iceland. It was Iceland that said 4 days a week. You keep your same pay, but now you only have to show up 4 days. So shout out to Iceland. I mean, I can't go to where it's cold. I don't even know if it's really cold, but it's called Iceland. I'm just assuming. I haven't looked. I don't remember my high school geography. But I'm joking. So yes, thank you, Michael Fan. Iceland implemented a 4-day work week. So when you see these commercials, the they, them ads, Recognize them for what they really are: a calculated political strategy designed to manipulate your emotions and distract you from the real issues that impact your wallet, your safety, and your family's future. Don't fall for it. But look, listen here. You want more examples? Just go streaming, do some research, look up all of the farmers who are complaining about all of the money that they've lost since this administration has taken control, taken over, won the election. These are the same policies that Winsome Earle Sears is going to back, support, and implement in any way she can in this state. Now, don't let me forget. Don't let me get off track, because I had a couple of things. You know, the race card. That's where we trying to frame this thing. They're hoping that at least us as black voters aren't critical thinkers. This notion that the gubernatorial race is groundbreaking. Okay, I'm not denying that. It's true, it's groundbreaking. But it's not all that groundbreaking. Not in this respect. As far as being a black person, voting for a black person. Now, I know we are introducing the intersectionality of gender. I'm not denying that. But I'm not necessarily in agreement with the mandate that we must always have this intersection of gender conversation. Now, let me see. Michael Payne asked a question. Why do you think that most black Americans and other Americans are distracted from learning from different countries, including the African continent? That's an excellent question. And I love that as a sidebar. So let me sidebar into that. Let me see. I wish I could get that on the screen. But none of my stuff has been working the way it's supposed to. So Michael Penn asked the question, why do you think that most black Americans and other Americans, because I do think I think it's a good question, but I think this affects all Americans. But why are we so distracted from learning from different countries, including the African continent? I think there is a multifaceted answer to that. Here's what I'll start off with saying. I think it stems from the mythology of America, the mythology of the American aesthetic. You know, this country prides itself, builds itself, promotes itself as exceptional. American exceptionalism. You know, everybody, regardless of what political brand you might be, Republicans and Democrats are always telling people that we are exceptional. It's baked into the fabric of this country. Even so much so that many times, I'm not going to say all, but many times, even when other nationalities come here, when immigrants come to this country, for one, a lot of them come here because of that myth. They come here because this is the land of opportunity. Of course I can make it if I get a chance to go there. So everybody is buying into this myth. It's in the schools, it's in the curriculum, it's in the politics, it's in the television shows, it's in the social media, it's everywhere. Everybody thinks, just like there was this clip. Oh, I wish I had this clip. There was this clip where it's from a TV show or something where the some girl, woman, young lady, she asked a question, and her question was from this perspective of she just not understanding how anybody could be so anti-America when America is clearly number one in everything. And the guy just ripped her to shreds, and he went down this long list of how We're not first in education. We're not first in innovation. We're not first in technology. We're not first. Like, he just ripped her to shreds. And I'm like, see, the reality is far different from the myth. So if you raise up any group of people, black, white, brown, red, yellow, if you raise up any group of people and your curriculum from kindergarten to 12th grade is telling them that they are a certain thing. This is one of the reasons why education is so important and so harmful at the same time. The curriculum as it is promotes this aesthetic for white people that they are the best thing since sliced bread. It promotes for black people that they are the worst thing since sliced bread. But it also promotes the idea that at least you're in America. America is the best thing since sliced bread. So if this is part of what you get indoctrinated with, you won't have the good common sense the Lord gave you to think outside the box. It takes radical thinking. It takes revolutionary thinking outside of the box. It takes waking up. It takes having an experience. Now, that experience could be you met and became friends with someone who came from somewhere else, and you learn about other places through that friendship. Or you got yourself on a boat, you got yourself on a plane, you went somewhere else, and you began to look and see and realize, and this happens a lot. There's a lot of people, black, white, and otherwise, who join the army, join the military, regardless of the branch, and they get out into the world, they get positioned in other countries, and then when they come back, they like, whoa, no. It ain't like what they told me. It ain't like the brochure, family. So that has a lot to do with, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say that has a whole lot, overwhelmingly lot. I know I said that incorrectly. That has a lot to do with why people don't look to other countries. If somebody's blowing smoke up your, then again, it takes a specific individual. You have to have this thing in you where you're like, I don't trust that. And then you have to have the motivation to run with that and go do your own investigations. Or you have to, like I said, you either go somewhere, you meet someone who's been somewhere, or hopefully you find a channel like mine, youtube.com/@theproperperspective. You find a channel like mine and you start hearing things, and maybe that will encourage you, inspire you to go looking at some other things. And so when you, like I said, so you have this idea that America is the best. Well, why would you look outside? But that's exactly why a news report like Iceland just says 4-day work week is the new norm. That's why it's important. That should be something that make you say, why you, especially when you driving to work on a Friday, if that's your normal work week. If you're driving to work on your 5th day and you just got the notification, this other whole country says 4 is the max, that should tell you something. That should get the mind going. So I hope I answered your question, Michael Pan. I hope I answered your question. At least, so that's, I may mull this over and I may come back and do another video on this. Hold on. But so what I was saying, that's the end of the sidebar, ladies and gentlemen. I was talking about this notion, this idea of critical thinking and the history of black people voting. So the notion of this gubernatorial race is as groundbreaking. I'm not disagreeing, but I want to add more nuance. Now, it may be truly groundbreaking and revolutionary for younger people. If you're 18 now, if you're in that age bracket, this is your first official opportunity to vote. You may have heard about some other groundbreaking things, but you never participated. So in that respect, It truly is groundbreaking, and nobody can say anything negative or against that. Now, if you're of the older generation and you was rolling around here, then you know we've already voted for a black governor. So in that respect, it's not that groundbreaking. Now, again, I was revving up this little conversation about the intersectionality. I don't disagree. I don't downplay. I don't deny that the intersectionality is important. But I am saying, let's have a grain of salt, shall we? I know Winsome Sears is black. But we've hardly ever voted for a candidate just because they were black. We've always looked at the issues. We voted for Doug Wilder, and it wasn't just because he was black. We may have loved the fact that he was black, but we loved the fact that he was black just like white folk love the fact that their candidate is white. Most white folk vote for a white candidate. If given the opportunity, most Hispanic folk will vote for a Hispanic candidate. If given the opportunity, y'all see where I'm going. Now, I will say this. Appreciate you, Michael Pan. I'm glad I did. I will say this, because now I am aware there is and has been, there's a new movement going around now amongst the black community. It's gotten a lot more steam. It's always been there. Don't get it twisted. It has always been there. It's gotten more steam in the past couple of years. And this new movement is, they thrive off of going against the black person because they're black, or they're not the right kind of black. They're black, but they're not black. They're not blickety black. Well, that ain't my kind of black. That ain't my shade of black. Wasn't born in my state. Ain't been over here as long as I've been. They want to delineate. You know, we saw this with the Kamala Harris campaign. But even in that, it was a preferential argument rooted in BS. Yeah, I said it. It was a preferential argument rooted in BS. Literally saying, let's vote for the white guy who has a history of being against the black community, just so we can shove it in the black people's faces that we're not going to vote for a black person if they're not a fully black person vetted by our black standards. Because we're not going to get duped by that kind of trickery anymore. Now, that's the game that's being played right now, and that's why I'm talking about critical thinking. These are the parlor tricks of politics that they're playing right in our faces. I hope most of us, just like most of us, like I almost know, most of us didn't fall for it during the Kamala Harris campaign. Hell, 98% of black women didn't fall for it. And somewhere around 80-85% of black men didn't fall for it. That last little 10, 15, 20%, I don't know what y'all brothers are smoking. But I said all of that to say I'm going to land the plane because I didn't plan on being up here that long. Hopefully, once the voting has been counted, once the scam of a black candidate, the Republican selected individual, Winsome Earle Sears, I really do, I hope that she doesn't win. That's the hope, at least. That's the hope for me over here on the proper perspective. I don't want Winsome Earle Sears to win this election. I don't think she will be good for the black community. I don't think she will be good for Virginia. Now, that is my proper perspective on things. But again, these are just my thoughts. These are just my position on this issue. And I would love to duke it out on the battlefield with you in the comment section. So y'all know the name of the game. Like, share, and subscribe. If you heard anything of interest, if you heard anything that you think might help somebody else or give somebody else some cool ideas, shout out to Doc Dreezy. I'm going to keep it going. I'm going to probably on another night, I'm going to wind this down a little bit. But if anybody got anything else they want to say, I'll stick around now. So again, like, share, and subscribe is the name of the game. So whether you're watching on Instagram, come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective and hit the like button, hit the notification bell. Ha ha ha. So Michael Pan says, how do you convince Philip Scott? Because he contradicts himself on some issues. I might ask you to give me a more specific example. I'm not that much of a fan of Philip Scott. If Philip Scott is who I think he is, let me do a quick little check. What are the issues that you are saying Philip Scott contradicts himself? Is that you talking about the governor of Vermont? That Philip Scott, or the Virginia House of Delegates member? I would imagine you're talking about the Virginia House of Delegates. I have not followed him as much, so I can't necessarily, speak too intelligently on it. Let me see. You say Philip Scott said that he is for Medicare for all, but he is against paying higher taxes. Well, I mean, it's one thing to say you're for something. Like I said, I'm going to just talk in general. It's one thing to say you're for something. Lots of people say these things because it gets them attention. Lots of people say these things because it gets them votes. Now, my question would be, for anyone that takes his position, if you're for Medicare for all, Medicaid for all, but you're against raising taxes, how are you going to pay for the Medicaid? I'm not saying that you got to raise the taxes in order to get the program. Now, it might very well be that that's what all the experts say. But if you have some genius plan, well, then you can let us know. So, again, if you, especially like, and if I'm reading this correctly, because like I said, I don't necessarily follow him. But if he is a Republican, and he believes in smaller government, and he advocates for traditional values, I wouldn't necessarily believe him when he says he's for, like, if you're for a thing, but you're not for the funding of the thing, then you're not really for the thing. You have some hang up that you're practicing, you're living in your cognitive dissonance, is the best that I could say. And I would say, of course, you're going to contradict yourself. I mean, it's similar, and I know it's not the same thing, but the cognitive dissonance, the hypocrisy of it. If you're a Muslim, but you're eating pork, you're not really a Muslim. If you're a Christian, but you don't believe in Jesus, you're not really a Christian. You can say things. So he can say he's for it for any number of reasons. But if you're not going to fund it, then you're not for it. And I'll give you another example. Because there have been several candidates, for instance, and RFK was one of them. think it was, Scratchy Voice man. You know, he was having this conversation with some black voters, and they wanted to discuss. For them, the issue was whether or not reparations was going to be a platform, a political issue that he would get behind. This was before he backed out of running. This is while he was still trying to run. And it was before he got picked as, one of the current administration's poster children. And so, in reading the room, he recognized everybody was there to hear an affirmative speech on reparations. And so he just went into the room and said, I support reparations. And he just kept saying, he had 10 different ways to say he supports reparations. Now, somebody was wise enough to say, excuse me, I have a question. How do you plan to implement and distribute the reparations? And he said, oh, that can't happen. And okay, and he had some, reasonably sounding reasons why it can't happen, but that's not the point. Just because somebody says they support your idea doesn't mean they're going to be there to get you back. Now, that may not be like, the academic way of expressing it. But again, if you say you are supporting something, then you have to have the gumption to get it across the finish line. Otherwise, of course, you're going to contradict yourself. It's called hypocrisy. And I don't know if you can convince a person. You can talk. You can have conversations. You can show people the math. But if they are firmly rooted in a belief that defies logic, science, math, economics, history, well, then the decision is yours. You can walk alongside that person. You can support that person. But you're not going to move the needle. So like I said, again, I might need to do some more digging. But if you're supporting any program that requires money, where are you going to get the money from? It's almost an age-old question. Like you got to get the money from somewhere. So you're either going to take it from some other program or you're going to have to raise taxes. Well, which is it? Now, if you're too scared to say it, if it's considered political suicide, then again, the dance will be the dance. But we have to, as voters, we have to get to the point where we have to say, look, no more dancing. You want a direct answer, because that's going to determine whether we vote for you or vote against you. And the clock is ticking. We need an answer now. So that's my answer to the question. Because I don't think you can convince someone if deep down inside they just don't want to do it. It's the same thing with reparations. Deep down inside, there are not enough voters in this country who want it to happen. So it doesn't matter that you have experts in economics, you have experts in history, you have experts in all these fields. Dr. William Darity is one I give a shout out to. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Because he has studied it, he has broken it down, he has shown how it can be implemented and distributed and paid for in such a way as it doesn't take away from nearly anybody else's budgetary expenditures. And the folk up there in Congress, so y'all know who folk I'm talking about. There ain't but so many of us there. So, but the folk up there in Congress will not even let it come to a vote. You can't get them to change their mind. You might have to vote them out. Otherwise, you can scare them into voting your way, because either vote yes or we gonna find somebody to replace you. And that's what the Republicans do. The minute they hear of another Republican that's breaking from the ranks, they call them up. Hey, you better get back in line. We gonna find somebody. We'll put a robot in your place if we have to. So that's how you convince him. You scare him into voting for the thing that he says he's supporting. Now, again, I don't know if that's the best academic answer, but at least as a confession, like I said, I haven't followed Philip Scott. So if that answers your question, I hope so. Let me see. Okay, I missed a couple of things. Philip Scott, the host of the African Diaspora News Channel. Oh, so I went off on a whole tangent about somebody that wasn't even real or that wasn't relevant to your question. But hold on. That Philip Scott, the independent, yeah, oh man. Well, I can talk about him too. Now, I am a little bit more familiar with him. Let me just pull him up real quick. Yeah, African Diaspora. Well, for the most part, honestly, everything that I said still applies to him. I'm not that much of a fan of that Philip Scott. Like, I didn't know the Philip Scott who is a Virginia representative. I don't know him, and I don't know his politics. But, you know, online it just says he's a Republican. But the Philip Scott with the African Diaspora Network, I don't like him. Now, so that might color my comments. But like I said, you know, everything that I said about Philip Scott with Medicare, look, you can either, if you're in politics, if you're in public office and you say that you're in favor of it, then you must have the gumption to vote for implementation. I still think that stands when we start talking about now. Philip Scott he's just a business guy. He's a YouTuber. He's a streamer. He's talented. He's successful. I'm not saying it in a derogatory way, but he doesn't, at least to my knowledge, he doesn't hold office. Now, if I'm wrong about that, then I'm just wrong. But again, I would have to ask the question, how does he want it implemented? How does he want it paid for? Philip Scott does not want people to put him in a box. Yeah, I know. I get it. All of those people, and I know that sounds a little strange and a little weird. All of those people say that they don't want to be put into a box. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we all get put into boxes whether we like it or not. So you walk the walk, you talk the talk. If it cracks like a duck, there's a box for you. He flip-flops. Now, some of this, again, this is me responding to the brother in the chat, Michael Pan. Philip Scott flip-flops between supporting free college education and vocational training. Okay. Now, I'm not necessarily sure what you mean by there. You mean either or, but again, I'm like, I was introduced to Philip Scott in the African Diaspora Network. I started watching him. I started following. I subscribed to the channel. And then, you know, that like maybe a year or two before the Kamala Harris campaign. During the Kamala Harris campaign, I was getting a little fed up with his coverage. I was getting a little fed up with his takes. And so eventually I just stopped watching him. I think he's disingenuous. I think it's a sham for him to name his thing the African Diaspora Network. And he himself I have seen a whole lot of negative things about Africa in and of itself on his channel. So I'm not a fan of him at all. I'm not surprised that he flip-flops. He is independent, but he voted for Donald Trump. See, and that's the thing. So when I said those people, that's kind of the thing that I mean. You have this group of people who like to claim independence. And like I said, because I had said earlier, maybe not necessarily on this stream, but I had said earlier, I was having a conversation about independence. And that's Bernie Sanders is an independent, but he votes lock, stock, and barrel almost all the time with the Democrats. So Philip Scott is an independent. But if all your talking points are in alignment with one particular party, just like even for me, I'm guilty of it. You know, I like to tell people, I'm not a Democrat. I don't like the Democrats. I'm an independent. But I can't help but get to this point when it comes to where I got to vote for somebody. And if I don't like the independent candidate, or not even like, if the independent candidate, if I don't think that the independent candidate has a snowball's chance in hell of winning, well then, okay, I still have to make this decision. Now I might decide I'm gonna vote for the independent candidate anyhow, but I might decide I wanna try to support the person who has the biggest chance of winning, if that's my self-defense vote, to block someone who will do more harm. So, and I say all that to say that I may be guilty of what I'm going to say. But these people who say, oh, I'm not a Republican, I'm independent, don't group me with them. But everything that you say is in alignment with the Republicans. Or maybe not everything. So much of what you say is in alignment with the Republicans. Then I got a problem with you waving the flag of independent. It's just like, you know, they do all those interviews during the election cycle or after the election, and they talk to all of these people about how they voted. You know, eventually they found out that the people were lying. The exit polls were wrong because the people were lying. I'm an independent, so I voted. No, you didn't. They found out all those white women that they polled, they thought those white women were voting for Hillary Clinton, and came out, find out they didn't. They thought they voted for Kamala Harris, and after all of the numbers, no, they didn't. So there's a lot of people who say I'm independent, but they're just Republicans. They're in the closet. So let me see what else. Ida Spinks has joined the chat. Ida Spinks says critical thinking is paramount in our lives. Good talk. Thank you, Ida Spinks, for that. Now, Michael Pan says, on the African Diaspora News Channel, Philip Scott said that he supported free college education between 2018 and 2024. Philip Scott used to vote for the Democrats until Barack Obama came to the White House in 2008. Philip Scott incorrectly labeled Harris as a socialist when he ran as a centrist Democrat. Okay, I'm going to try to tackle all of those. As far as I'm concerned, like I said, I lean Democrat. Clearly, I wouldn't have a problem with anybody that says I voted Democrat for this year and that year or whatever. Okay, that's cool. Now, I understand the notion, the impetus, the desire, the change of heart of it all. I understand these ideas. I've been there, where you're like, okay, I'm tired of voting for Democrats. I don't think the Democrats are doing anything for us. I don't think the Democrats are doing nothing or enough for us. Maybe we need to change our vote. I get that. I felt that during certain election cycles. And to some extent, to a greater extent, I still feel that now. So I understand the sentiment. But at the same time, you got to have this leveling. There's a teaching out of ancient Egypt, out of Kemet, surrounded by the idea of ma'at, the concept of balance. And I say that to say, okay, I may be upset, frustrated, disappointed, sick, and tired of the lack of progress that we get from Democrats. And I may be encouraged, inspired, desirous of voting for a Republican. But then when I look at the issues, I cannot find a reason to vote for a Republican except out of spite. I cannot find a policy, a Republican policy. I cannot find a Republican piece of legislation that I can say, well, at least I got that. Now, if you are religious oriented, and that might be why a lot of people start jumping on that bandwagon. If you're religious oriented and you're so captivated by the Bible that you think those passages in those certain books mean certain people, the Rainbow Crew, shouldn't be allowed to do A, B, C, D, E, or F, at least you got something. It's a stupid rationale, but at least you got a rationale. I can never find a rationale to vote for the Republican. I can never find a reason, no matter how frustrated or angry or pissed off I am at Democrats. I can never find, like, I would never have voted for this tyrannical administration at all. But I especially wouldn't have voted for this current administration who's practicing tyranny before our very eyes, because I'm angry that the Democrats chose a woman that might be black or half black or really from the Caribbean or really is Indian or got a black grandmother and an Indian grandfather. Those are no reasons for me to vote for somebody that has the track record that the current leader has. Now let me see, let me read this thing. Correction. Philip Scott is incorrect. Philip incorrectly. I thought that's what you meant. Philip Scott incorrectly labeled Kamala Harris as a socialist, even though she ran as a centrist Democrat in 2024. I do believe that Philip Scott is, he has his opinions, he has his views. I don't think they're genuine. I think he did all of that incorrect labeling on purpose. I think that his channel is more so about the talking points of the Republicans. What you see is you have Republicans who claim the brand and the label. Then you have independents who don't claim the brand or the label. It's just strategy, but they still vote Republican. And it is true. It's the same on both sides. Like I said, Bernie Sanders is an independent, but he votes with the Democrats. It's more about the inner workings of the machine politic. So I'm not surprised that you find contradictions in his positions. I mean, and quite frankly, and I'm not even saying that as a shot or denigration or anything. We are all human, so we are all subject to contradictions. I am familiar with Demetra K. I had started watching her too, and Donovan Sadiq. I'm definitely familiar with Demetra K. I believe Donovan, I believe he at least sometimes guest appears on her show. So I am familiar with her. Again, very interesting channels. I have watched her channel for a while. And again, I get to a point where, to some extent, I would even say one of the reasons that I started my channel is because I just had this thought process in my mind that I keep running into people online who seem to be saying one thing, but then when it's punch time, when it's crunch time, they start adjusting, rearranging, and going in the opposite direction. And I just felt like it inspired the name of my channel. Who studied, let me see, hold on. Ida Spink says, please repeat the doctor who studied reparations. Dr. William Darity, Darrity. If I could pull him up, I might do that real quick. Let me see something real quick. So, Dr. William Darity. Yeah, so let me put this on the screen. Let me try to put this on the screen because these things start acting up. So Dr. William Darity, and let me see, where is my screen? So you can see here real briefly, Dr. William Darity is a leading American economist and public policy scholar, known for his research on inequality, reparations for Black Americans, and the economics of race and class. He's a professor at Duke University. He is the director of the Samuel Du Bois Cook Center on Social Equality and co-authored the book From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. So it's a very good book. It's a very good study. And like I said, it's very well laid out. And it's one of the reasons why, let me come back to the main screen. It's one of the reasons why I personally get frustrated with the Democrats. It's one of the reasons why I stopped, hooting and hollering for Democrats. Because every time the issue comes up, there's a certain batch of Democrats that say, no, we're not going to do that. That's over and done with, just like the Republicans. Then there's a certain batch of Democrats that say, I believe we need to study it. And then you got the progressives that's like, we want it to happen, but look what we're up against. And so now again, here's the difference. Yes, I'm frustrated with the Democrats. And as I said, the Democrats, they got three groups: the no's, the yes, but it can't be done, and the yes, and they won't let us. Over on the Republican side, you got the no's, the hell no's, and the absolutely screw that hell no's. Why would I vote Republican? Yeah, So Michael Pan says Donovan Sadiq is Demetri K's friend. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So for Ida Spinks that wanted to know about Dr. William Darity, you got his name. Let me see. I don't know if this one's gonna work, but there's his name. You see a little picture of him and the name of his book. I know it's not that big. I'm doing this on the fly, so I can't increase the text or whatnot. So sorry for that. But you can always, I tell you what I will do, I will drop it in the chat. So let me drop this in the chat if I can. That way, anybody else that wants the information, y'all can get it too. So let me see if I can get it into the chat. Because we are talking about Virginia politics. So here we go. Yeah, we go. So if you want the link to that little blurb, and that ain't gonna work, isn't that something? Oh, let me see. Well, I'll give you this one in the chat since that one is too long. Again, you can check out who he is just by going to the link that I put in the chat. That's his Duke profile. It's not the AI Google search thing, but you got that a little bit. So that's in the chat. Michael Pan says, okay, he said he used to watch their show, but he noticed they were very biased. And I got you. I feel you. Now, maybe I'm not necessarily sure what you mean by bias. I mean, I know what bias is, but I'm like, I think everybody's biased. We're all biased. Now, whether or not you are, mature enough to admit your bias, whether or not you are logical enough to say, here's where I'm biased, take these statements with a grain of salt. Here's where I'm not biased or where I don't think I'm biased. That might be something. But I mean, I think everybody is biased. But for me, it wasn't necessarily the bias. It was, to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't the bias. It was like, if your bias aligns with my bias, then we good. If your bias is not aligned with my bias, we're not good. But again, that is natural. That's part of the human condition. But I feel you talking about you just talking about over time. I got you there. I'm getting a little notification type thing, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying out all these people's names. So I get what you're saying, but I'm not gonna throw their name out there that much because I'm not trying to get no new strikes. Let me see if I can. I was supposed to be able to. Nope, that ain't it. I was supposed to be able to go into this panel. Nope, that's not the right one. This is the panel I'm supposed to be able to go into. Okay, so now I'm in the panel. And let me see. Yeah, see, it still doesn't let me. I'm in the panel and it still is not necessarily letting me. Like, I was going to try to put your comments on the screen and it's just not letting me do it. I don't know why that is. I can pin the message. Maybe that's what it is. But I don't think, though. That's not it. It's not pinned up there. I mean, it's pinned on my screen, but it's not pinned for you guys. But I get you, Michael. I understand. Again, sometimes bias is bad. I mean, technically, it's supposed to always be bad. But like I said, if more often than not, we have a problem with bias when it contradicts our own bias. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I just think that's just the way we are as humans. But again, so the idea is, let me see. Like I said, I watch their shows too. And I was very much a fan of their shows until, like, I think I was introduced to that last show that you said because of some topics around reparations. But again, what irritated me. Now, see, that I did not know that the brother voted for, and I did not know that he was such a staunch supporter that he said that he regrets his vote. Now, that he does not regret his vote. Now, what I will say is a lot of Black MAGA, that's just who they are. They vote for him, just like the Latino people. Y'all know the I will vote for Donald Trump. They voted for him, and even the lady singing the song, I think, is either in trouble with the law or may have actually gotten deported or something like that along the news. So, I mean, again, I would be surprised if a Trump supporter did regret their vote. And I say that because even some of these, I've seen reviews, I've seen interviews, I've seen these posts and whatnot all over social media, from YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and so on, where they're showing these white people who are complaining about not being helped by the current administration. But I haven't seen them literally say they regret voting for the current administration. And so again, the brother says, I'm a recovering Democrat. I am an independent voter. No, you're not. Like, see, okay, here's the thing. You can be an independent thinker. That's one thing. I'm an independent thinker. But if you constantly vote for one party, you are who you vote for. So, as much as I don't like to admit it, like, I almost always end up voting for the Democrat. I'm not a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party, and I have all kinds of critiques and bones to pick with the Democratic Party. But I'm never voting for MAGA. I'm never voting for the Republicans. Now, I'm independent because I'm not going to put any money into the Democrats' pot. But if you vote, and especially in critical elections, like, no, if you voted for Trump, you're a Republican. You're a closet Republican. You're not a recovering Democrat. You're a closet Republican. You might as well just come on out the closet. The rest of them are. If you're an independent voter and you never vote for an independent candidate, what are we talking about? So again, like, people like to say things. And again, it's one of the reasons that I did start my channel, because there's too many talking heads. They're snowing you. And again, if you get into it just for the money, I get it. They're doing this stuff for the clicks. They're doing this stuff for the views. I hear YouTube rewards you handsomely once you reach your monetization goals. Please hit the like button. Please hit the notification bell. Share this stream and this channel with other people who might find something interesting, who might learn a thing or two. But a lot of people are doing these things and saying these things because they know, just like they know where the money really is. Just like all those conservatives, those 20 conservatives that went to bat up against Amanda Seals. They did it. They are conservatives because there's a lot of money in the conservative space. If you get online and you say anything pro the current administration and anti-Democrats, you will get your timeline algorithm pushed. So it's the new come up. It's the new quick get rich quick scheme. Just talk like you're in favor of it, whether you are or not. So, again, if you watch the shows, if you watch the channels, I understand. I watch them sometimes. I used to watch them a lot. I subscribed. Now, every now and then, once I get, beyond a certain aggravation level, I will go back and unsubscribe. But usually, if I subscribe to you once, I'm gonna just let it ride. Let me see. Somebody else joined on Instagram, and I do apologize for not seeing that. David Hadley Fink joined. Shout out to David. Appreciate you being here. Hope you're listening. Come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. And I don't mean @AT, I mean @ the sign. Shameless plug, yes, I do. So again, ladies and gentlemen, we were talking tonight about Virginia politics. Winsome Sears. So we kind of finished that, closed that. If anybody has anything else that they want to say, drop a comment. Instagram, YouTube, I'll talk a little bit more, but I'm gonna land the plane at least on the Virginia politics. Because as I started out my little conclusion, and I said, I hope the Republican candidate does not win. I don't want them to win. So like, share, and subscribe. And, over here on The Proper Perspective, we try to cover news. We try to cover current events. We try to cover political stories that are both social, cultural, that occur over here in the U.S. and in other areas of the world, especially the African continent. So this is a pro-Black channel. This is a Pan-Africanist channel. And as time goes by, I will be covering other subjects and topics. So please like, share, and subscribe. Hit those buttons. Hit all the buttons. And we can continue duking it out in the comments. And with that, I'm going to get ready to get up out of here. I appreciate you for joining. I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for speaking, talking, discussing, duking it out on the battlefield, which is my comment section. And I will see you guys on the next live. Peace.